today's topic is very close to our hearts at the Rebay Group. When we look at investments and we look at companies that we potentially want to invest in, oftentimes kind of a common trait that runs through those is a really strong and passionate entrepreneur and, you know, a really deep level of skills. So, you know, we believe that needs to be, you know, the breadth of that needs to be increased in this country. So yeah, we're very excited to be a part of it, and yeah, we thank all of you guys for joining us today as well. Let me just introduce Louise. She's asked to keep it short, but I think it's important that we understand the background to her program and to herself. So Louise describes herself as a social entrepreneur, and she believes that the world's huge intractable problems can be solved through cross-sector collaboration and a solid understanding of complex social change. Her approach to change is shaped with more than 30 years of working as an organizational change and leadership development practitioner. She holds a doctorate in complex social change and has founded a few entrepreneurial organizations. In 2008, she returned home from South Africa after living in Europe, and in 2010, she launched the Partners for Possibility, which was a creative solution to SA's education crisis. Business leaders that are involved develop their capacity to lead in a complex and unfamiliar environment, becoming a co-learning and a co-action partner to a school principal. The focus on the partnership is to lead positive change in an under-resourced school, of which make up the majority of the schools in South Africa. Leaders report that they learn more about leadership from working with a school in an under-resourced community than attending a course at a business school. The Partners for Possibility program facilitates cross-sectoral reciprocal partnerships between business, government, and the social sector. And I know it's something that our president has spoken about a lot, about the social pact that's so important to moving our economy forward. To date, the program has impacted more than 700 schools, 20,000 teachers, and 600,000 learners. And if you'll just indulge me for a little bit longer, just some of the awards that they've recently been bestowed upon. They were one of 6 winners of the Worldwide Innovation Summit for Excellence, and they were the recipient of the Chairman's Guardian of Governance, created by the Institute of International Auditors for South Africa. So if we're ready there, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome our speaker, Dr. Louise van Rhyn.
So 8 leadership lessons. I'm going to rush through these. Firstly, this idea of symphonia and the sounding of all the voices together really came home to me one day when I was working at Ashridge Business School, which is the most amazing place, one of the most amazing places in the world in the UK. So before I tell you my story, I just want to quickly check. When you go into a pub in London, how do you know who the South African, lots of men sitting around drinking beer, how do you know who's the South African man? Shorts and flip-flops. What? Springbok shirt, eating biltong, drinking cold beer rather than warm beer, having a boop. I mean, I hear this all the time from everybody. Let me tell you the story that I had about the South African man. The South African man is going to be the one that says, "Let me tell you." Have you seen them? I mean, you must see them when the Boks play. Or when the other day I had Roger Federer play on the television. My beautiful, tall South African rugby playing man was sitting the whole time telling Federer what to do differently on that court. Because he knows, because South African men know. Don't you? I mean, they have the answers. Yeah? Watch them coach the Boks when you're in the, you know. So my story about this is a man thing. Until one day I realized this has nothing to do with men. This has to do with our story in South Africa about leadership. So we go to Gibbs or GSB or whatever, and we get the Kool-Aid. And the Kool-Aid goes like this: leaders should know the way and show the way and give direction. Have you heard that story? Yeah? Yeah? No? Leaders should be out there and tell people what to do. So I got that Kool-Aid. I did my MBA at Stellenbosch. I went to London. I go to this place. I get invited to speak, to be part of the design team for the BBC Leadership Development Program. I mean, what a privilege. But I go in there because I got that Kool-Aid, that leaders must know the way, show the way, give direction. So the whole day when we did that, we were about 40 people in the room. They knew my name, they knew my face. Because you know what? Anybody would say, I said, I've got a better solution. Let me tell you about what we think we should. In South Africa, like, you know those people? Do we like having them in the room? No, they're complete arseholes. There I was, being a complete arsehole the whole day, taking all the airtime, being very proud of myself. At the end of the day, I was like, I have been showing some leadership today. People knew me. They knew they're going to ask me to join their teams. I am the big man. One of the women, Karen Van Stone, came up to me at the end of the session and she tapped me on the shoulder gently. And she said, Louise, would you mind if I gave you some feedback about this day that you have been participating in? Now, I don't know what happens to you in that moment, but that's the moment that I want to run a mile. But the only thing, this is an Institute of Higher Learning, the only answer I could give her is, I would love to have your feedback, lying through my teeth. So she looks me in the eye, compassionately, gently, she said, let's go for a walk. So we walked down this there's a forest at the back there, and there was bluebells, it was spring, and the bluebells were out. And she said the following, it changed my life. She said, Louise, I need you to know what happens to me when you are so certain. And it was the first time in my life that I realized that my passion and enthusiasm and all that stuff comes across as certainty. I need you to know what happens to me when you are so certain. My voice goes completely quiet because there is no space in your certainty for my voice to be heard. And then she continued, and what I need you to do is to hold certainty just a little more lightly so that there's space for my voice to. How many of us in this room can do with holding certainty a little more lightly that there's spaces for other voices? How many voices are being quiet by us because we are so certain we have all the answers? We are the privilege, we hold ek is deel van die uitverkore volk. Honestly, guys? So I've learned that I can move from knowing and showing the way to inviting an army of people. We have 2,000 people who are part of PFB, and they do the most amazing things. And we have Terry, who's mobilizing the whole of Simbiti, and then she mobilizes Malcolm, and then Malcolm says, and now we need to get Bretton Woods involved, and then Bretton Woods. Wow, that's how this happens. Not me kind of telling Malcolm how to do this thing in Simbiti, but inviting Malcolm to join the journey. That's my big lesson about this work. The second lesson I've learned is that the delivery vehicle of my expertise is my humanity. I was trained by Anderson Consulting that said it's all about the numbers on your, the degrees on your business card and how important you are, and you have to wear the right clothes and drive the right car and, all of that complete nonsense. And then I go to Kaname Primary, which is where this whole thing started. I started to work with Ridwan Samadin, and I realized that when I go to Kaname Primary, they're not interested in my car, in my degrees, in my clothes. All they want to know is, how do I make them feel? And so there's been 3 movements for me. One is, and this is work in progress. I haven't got it sorted yet. I have been on this journey for 10 years. I'm working. The one is, I have to have an open mind. I need to move from certainty, from thinking that I know and I can be helpful to other people and I have solutions, to realizing that it means much more to the world and to everybody if I can become curious. So it's moving from knowing to not thinking I know, to not knowing and being comfortable with not knowing. The second movement is about being open-hearted. So that's moving from judgment, thinking I have the right to say other people are wrong, to compassion and giving people an A in Ben Zonder's language. If you haven't read Art of Possibility, please do. It's an amazing book. And then the last one is open will, which is moving from being fearful about taking a stance to having the courage to say, guys, we can't stop, we have to do something. And not sit on the sidelines and being worried about what will people say if I step up and do something. I've realized that the key performance indicator for leadership is shining eyes. So when people have shining eyes, then you are doing it as a leader. When their eyes are not shining, you get to ask myself, who am I being? Because on a stage, the only musician who doesn't make a sound is the conductor. But the conductor their power is dependent on their ability to make other people powerful. So that's the new definition of leadership. Who am I being? And it's about being conscious and paying attention to the people around me, not just being so focused on me and my how I'm being experienced. So this is for the women in the room. There's this wonderful saying that says, if you have the vision, you have the mission. So in Afrikaans it says, as jy die visie het, het jy die werk. So my husband comes to me and says, the medicine cupboard is very untidy. I say, my darling, as jy die visie het, het jy die werk. Doen iets daaraan. Don't come and tell me about the medicine cupboard that's being untidy. It's not on my list. It's not on my agenda. It's not. If you want to do something, do it. But the same is true about life. If you are sitting here today with some anger about an injustice or something that you want to do something about it. Honestly, guys, it's not going to happen. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what is the future that I'm committed to? And am I going to be an architect or a victim? Or am I going to create the future that I want, or always complain about the fact that, shame, our leader is dead and now we don't have the leader, the future's not going to happen. I have agency. Every time I show up in a room, I get to create the future I want. Every time I open my mouth, I get to be committed to that future. I don't have to. There's no one who says I must do it in a particular way. Responsibility is about taking responsibility for my contribution rather than continuously blaming other people. And then lastly, the choice around, do I want to be a citizen or a consumer? Citizen says, this is my future, my country, my children. I'm not going to sit back and wait for who? For Angie, for Cyril, for who to create the future we want. Citizens say, it's my country, I'm going to get out there, do something. So you are being invited here into a place of being citizens. Obama, a few years ago, I was very, very depressed one evening, and I listened to a talk that Obama did at an event. And he mentioned this little plaque that's on his desk. It's there, and then this is a kind of... And on the plaque it says, hard things are hard. So I also want to say to you, if you're going to be on this journey, you are going to be misunderstood and judged and ridiculed, etc. But it's worth it, because hard things are hard. And this is, if you choose to be in this country, better you choose to be part of the solution. So the future will be created by ordinary people saying yes, and we have many of them in the room. You'll see many of those pictures on the room. I heard a wonderful story about Andre yesterday. I mean, there's amazing stories. And Andrew, and these people are all people that you know and love. Where's Malcolm? There's Malcolm. Now, Carte Blanche, I have to tell the Carte Blanche story. Carte Blanche has said many times that they're not going to feature us, they're not going to make a story about partners' possibilities, because we don't have big people. And they said, if you had Trevor Manuel as a partner, then we might be interested. But you don't. You only have 833 of South Africa's most amazing people. So I want us to change the story about how we're going to create the future, because it's not going to be big people. It's going to be ordinary people. And so that's one of the, I think we made a massive mistake if we underestimate the power and ingenuity of people who care. So, and you'll get the slides, so now, the seventh, there's an eighth one. The seventh lesson I've learned has been a really tough one for me. So I grew up believing I'm not good enough. And I have a father who made it very clear to me I wasn't a boy. I didn't play music, and I didn't play tennis, and all the things that I didn't do. And so what happened to me is I became this, I became all I wanted to do was to get affirmation. And then I heard from Ben Zander that I could choose a new game. I could choose the game of I'm a contribution rather than I'm not good enough and all that stuff. And that was a kind of possibility for me to live into, and I started to work with that. But I was aware of the fact that my searching, the reason I did 4 degrees and the reason I had my doctorate before I was 40 was because I wanted to be good enough. And then I go to the school, and I have these little boys and girls running around saying, Auntie Louise is here. And I realize that who I am is enough. I do not have to be any more than who I am. And I want that for everybody. I want all of us to know that who we are is enough, and we do not have to be big people, and we can just show up fully, like Paul is showing up, and like Andrew is showing up, and Terry is showing up, and Malcolm. And so I want us to be enough to create the future that we want for our children. And then the last thing I've realized is that you start a movement by inviting people to join. And my children got a bit embarrassed initially because when I started this, I would go up to the guy with the Ferrari and I say, listen, you drive the most amazing vehicle. I love this car. But you know, given that you drive such a car in this country, I'm sure you want to be part of the solution. Do you want to join Partners for Possibility? And my kids weren't very impressed with me. I don't do that anymore, but Terry does, so be careful for driving around in a Ferrari here in Simbiti. So we have about 900 people who have said yes. Some of them have partners, some in other capacity. And I just want to, I can't end this. I'm not doing a sales pitch, but I do want to invite you to join us in some way. And so if you feel called by what you heard today to get involved, it's much better for you to join us than to start your own new thing. Promise you, because we have too many new things that are not getting off the ground because it's hard to get something new off the ground. So, to end up where we started, Superman's gone. Well, actually, Madiba's gone. Superman's a fictional character. If each of us just think about what is the injustice that's driving us slightly crazy. And ask ourselves, if not now, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? What is the future we envisage for South Africa? And what if we are being called to make it happen? What if we are the leaders we're waiting for?